Do you have to click something saying you're okay with
Yeah, got it.
Okay. So if you could start by giving us your name and telling us that you are part of the pastoral ministry team.
Well, greetings. I'm Rodney Frey, part of the pastoral ministry team at the UUCP, and honored to be part of that team.
So what's been the most challenging thing about the last year for you?
Well, we've all gone through so many challenges in so many different parts of our lives. But perhaps the most challenging part, and we've all faced them, and we all will face them. We have the passing of loved ones. When a friend or a loved one passes, it's always a challenge. And perhaps as a lay chaplain at the hospital, I've maybe experienced a few more deaths than normal. I don't know. But I found that each passing, each person passing, it's unique. There's nothing standard about it. There's nothing automatic about it. It's a very powerful, unique, individual process that no two are alike in my experience. And this last year, one of those passings had to do with my mother-in-law, Jean. She passed almost, just a month or two before her 100th birthday. She had a great life, and Chris, my wife, and I were fortunate to be with her all these months. We were actually designated caregivers, part of a team prior to COVID. So we were able to continue in that role, spending a lot of time with her, hours and hours. And it was a blessing because we got to know each other so much more. And I got to appreciate a fabulous woman that I wouldn't have otherwise. And her passing was hard. It left a big void in our being. And that was tough. It's interesting. Just a few weeks later, I got called in about midnight on a Friday night to the Gritman family birth center, and a couple had just lost what would be their child. 26-week fetus passed. That was very challenging. Because they were COVID positive, I had to put on the PPE and the N95s, and that kind of course, creates a little bit more of a barrier where you needed to have some degree of intimacy with the parents who were suffering. But we made the best of it, and nurses were fantastic. I said some prayers, and I tried to comfort them as best I could. I knew that they were Christian, and I tried to mold the prayer to align with their beliefs. They asked me to hold the child that was dressed in what would have been its birth suit, its little outfit. And I held the child lifeless and almost weightless. And I just, I'll never forget that feeling. And I guess it linked me even more to the anguish the parents were feeling at the time. So those two were very powerful for me. And it's interesting that they were paired together because they contrasted so much. One, a woman I had known almost 40 years, my mother-in-law, lived a long life. Most of her dreams, I suspect, were fulfilled, at least most of them. She had a great life, a wonderful life. And that contrasted with a perfect stranger, 3 perfect strangers. One life that hadn't even begun yet, but was full of dreams and hopes of its parents that would be unfulfilled. And even though they contrasted, boy, they had the same powerful impact on me. And those were challenges.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing those stories. So what has helped you get through both those losses that you've described, but COVID in general.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm not sure I've gotten through them.
So maybe the question should be, what's helped you get through so far?
Yeah, so far. Well, and again, with my mother-in-law, there's certainly a void. I mean, Chris and I really feel it. And I'm not sure we want it filled. I don't think it can be filled. It's going to be something that we live with, because that void is interestingly filled with memories and joys and sorrows that we experienced with her and her life. And I always want to treasure that as part of my being, part of my soul. And so it was something a void. But in contrast, the child that didn't come to be left an imprint. And again, it's a powerful imprint and a meaningful one. And I never want to let go of the anguish and despair those two young parents had for the loss of their child and what that means in the human experience. And so I will treasure that always, even though it is a grief. But, in reflecting on this, I think something that helps soothe it or calm the moment, at that moment for me, had to do with the spoken word, specifically the sound that comes from words spoken in prayer or a poem. Before Jean passed, in the days leading up to it, we had an opportunity for her to visit with her priest of many, many years. And he shared some words from the Episcopal Book of Common Prayer. And those words were unfamiliar to me. It had to do with the Trinity and Jesus, the Savior. And similar words were also shared by a deacon, a local deacon that's gotten very close with Jean, and coming from that Book of Common Prayer. And those words, again, alien to me in so many ways. I don't include the Trinity or Jesus Christ, the Savior, in my own personal prayer. But I had a lot of respect for those words, and I knew they meant so much to Jean. But the way they were shared from the priest and the deacon, how they came across, the tone was more than the specific meaning of the words. There was something deep, something powerful, a love that came through those words that really affected Jean, and it certainly affected us. And that was so helpful. Again, it wasn't so much the specific words, but the tone that was packed around or in those words. And those words were so powerful, I actually wrote them down on my cell phone. And I have a long inventory of things I have on my cell phone that I use as a lay chaplain at the hospital, that I can refer to parables or phrases, Buddhist meditation, various things. And those words I thought, maybe useful. And by golly, when I got called in at midnight, I turned to those same words in modification, and I included a lot of ad hoc prayers, but I used them. Again, words that I don't personally prescribe to, but I could believe and respect those words because they aligned so well with these young parents. And I knew I needed to do that. I knew I needed to link with them as best I could. And I tried with all my heart to share those words with sincerity, with honesty, with my heart. And I don't know if I touched the base, their core in some way. I hope I did. They thanked me, and I could feel a sincere thanks from them afterwards. But I think even in my uttering of those words, interestingly, I felt a little calming. I felt a little soothing. Again, it wasn't so much the words, but the sound. I hope it came from something deep within me. And I don't know. I just think that maybe it was almost like the rhythm, a cadence of a mantra, a spoken mantra. And regardless if it was a Christian or a Buddhist or a sun dancer or an atheist, uttering those words in a poem, in a prayer, in a conversation, there's something that could be tapped in deeper within the heart, something ubiquitous and transcendent that maybe speaks to the loving healing that comes from love. I want to think so. The power of that love that can come through a prayer or a song or a poem or a meditation, regardless of the actual language, but coming from the heart that can touch and link us and help in a healing sort of way.
Reminds me of the Shakespeare quote, "Give sorrow words. The grief that does not speak knits up the o'erwrought heart and bids it break."
Oh my gosh, thank you. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, Rodney, thank you so much for everything you've shared so far. This is such a sweet and rich conversation. I have one last question for you. What kind of support are you able to offer people in our community?
Well, I seek to help others. I like to think of myself, and I know I always work at it, trying to be a listener, trying to really listen to what others are sharing in words or actions, trying to be aware of their situation, and as best I can have some empathy for it. And when I can have a little bit of empathy, I can help provide care and comfort in the best I can. So it's, it's something I always strive for, and I'm not perfect in it, but it's something I really work at, and hope I can be welcoming and opening to anybody, regardless of their background. And I guess as a former anthropologist, a lot of different populations I've worked with, from the homeless to Native Americans to all sorts of folks. And I hope I can be open to the wonderful nature of our diverse congregation at our church, because we have so many different voices and experiences, and there's no uniformity to that, our group, which is great, other than they're all wonderful people. So I hope that's something I can offer.
All right. Thank you so much again. I'm going to go ahead and